Hi, I'm Mary. I'm the co-founder of Show-Junee. We're providing reuse as a service for food systems. So it's probably not news to you that the $1 trillion packaging industry is dominated by single use. That's largely because the cost of plastic has been artificially cheap for the last few decades. And obviously the convenience culture has put single-use products in high demand. And while convenience culture probably isn't going anywhere, the artificially cheap single-use era is over. So increasing cost of raw materials and supply chain disruptions have already affected packaging buyers as of this year. Many of our partners are reporting that their single-use prices are going up. And that's definitely not going to get better as climate change continues to disrupt supply chains over the next few years. But on top of that, governments are introducing taxes on single-use plastic in virgin plastic, like the UK's plastic packaging tax. And if that wasn't enough for you, negative consumer sentiment around single use has never been higher, which has already led many packaging suppliers or packaging purchasers to switch to costlier, more sustainable options. And while interest in sustainable packaging is high, food operators looking to switch to reusables still face logistical barriers. Our food operating partners have told us that even as cost becomes maybe parity or at least close enough, their lack of washing infrastructure and unwillingness to manage the operations and additional work make it unlikely that they'll just buy a bunch of Tupperware and implement reuse systems themselves. That's where Show-Junee comes in. We're providing reuse as a service for semi-closed food systems. Now, what's a semi-closed food system? That's where people are unlikely to leave a place without throwing away or returning their packaging items to a managed centralized location. So think maybe your office or an office canteen and not you ordering delivery at your house. How does it work? We work with food operators that borrow our durable food packaging at a fixed cost. It's about £1 per use. And they have the option of encouraging user tracking via mobile or web ordering app if they want to. We pick up from them from a centralized location, typically their loading bay or wherever else they get deliveries and pickups. And after commercially cleaning, we redeliver it back to them. And our tech focuses on the reverse logistics of grouping reusable items together and operating and moving them from densely co-located places. And if all of that sounds pretty logistically complicated, that's great news. We're the only reusable team with logistics-focused operating experience. Before starting Show-Junee, I ran the packaging and logistics teams at HelloFresh US during the transition period between pre to post IPO, where we really needed to focus on our unit economics, and I helped build our logistics network and figure out how to ship food through the mail. My co-founder, Caroline, has had experience launching a semi-closed reuse system at Deloitte, where she replaced millions of single-use coffee cups with reusables. And our CTO, Mark, has over 15 years experience in tech and was last the VP of engineering at a B2B food delivery company. We're proud to be backed by Sustainable Ventures and my old boss at HelloFresh, who's the current CEO of the US. And our focus, that is different from many other reusable packaging companies, is that we're the only B2B focused and logistics-led reusable system. So our closed B2B network means that we actually have a pretty high natural rate of return because people want to get rid of their packaging before they leave the place. So over the last couple of months, we've seen that the return rate has been about 98%. And because we're focusing on these high volume, high density places, we actually have a pretty low cost per pickup and delivery and positive unit economics. And because we're in these closed systems, we don't force users to pay a deposit for their packaging or unnecessarily scan items, which we've seen as is a huge barrier to people actually using reusable packaging. And logistics-led means that we are not packaging manufacturers or resellers. The value in what we're building is a service platform. So today we provide the packaging and connect service providers to enable reuse, but long-term we'll look to move away from owning the packaging and simply providing reuse servicing, which is why our tech focuses on parcelizing the items to logistics industry principles of moving goods around.
And your time is up. Quick on your raise. How much are you guys raising? And it looks like you're growing well.
Yes. 5 minutes, I guess, goes a lot faster than you think. A lot faster than when I practiced here. We're raising 750K to get us to 200K MR.
Very cool. Let me bring in the other investors now so we can put you on the clock questions wise. Everybody is here. What questions do you guys have for Mary and Jungmann? What would you like to know about the company? You want to go first this time, Moritz?
Yeah, I can go first. We didn't really see it. I would be interested who's paying for the service.
So whoever is responsible for the collection of the items, so it would be the canteen operator or it could be the office. Whoever is in charge of that closed reuse system is paying for the packaging, which may be different to who is paying for it today.
Okay, so in the end, the value proposition for an organization or what kind of hub is that the cleaning process the canteen would have to bury is more expensive than your logistic and cleaning process.
Doesn't necessarily always have to be that it's more expensive in terms of cost. It could be more operationally challenging for them to stand up. And I think a lot of people think of this as being, hey, can't they just clean it themselves? But you would sort of ask the question, obviously, there's a lot of service providers for cleaning for that purpose. Like, sometimes I get a cleaner, even though I could very well clean my house myself. So there's lots of people that fit under that definition of wanting to transition over to reusables, but not having the space, the capacity, or sometimes just the desire to want to wash all the what would potentially be reusable packaging.
Okay.
Mari, great job on the pitch. I thought very well done. However, I have to challenge you on your competitor overview. You guys being the only B2B focused logistics.
Cookie.
Exactly, since we just made an investment in a company called Cookie. So I'm convinced of the case. I love the case. They essentially, tackle the B2B on the, coffee shop side. So like, little cups. You go over canteens, so that's going to be the next step. So I'm just thinking more how I can maybe help you, or if there's anything that I can do for you, maybe connect you with the CEO. Maybe that's an interesting conversation for you. You can think about that, follow up after. Yeah, we love the space. We just made a big investment, so definitely very cool cause, and we believe in it. And it's exactly this infrastructure play that is going to be the differentiating factor. And this is why we invested, not so much like the revenue for each cup, but much more the bigger picture of you essentially running the entire logistics backbone for a variety of B2B players.
And the other key to what he just said is we just made a big investment. So this is something that takes a lot of cash and it takes a lot of execution. Why are you guys going to be the ones that do this?
Well, I think I talked a little bit about my background. A lot of other people in the reusable space have great experience in whatever their careers before. We see a lot of designers. We see a lot of people just that are passionate about sustainability, but not a lot that have direct logistics experience. I'm sure there's lots of people starting businesses that I wouldn't have been able to put in a competitive landslide. But we are one of the teams that has, or I personally have a lot of experience in running logistics teams, being familiar with logistics networks. And we really think that that is the key to unlocking reusables at scale for a lot of different types of people and operators and service providers that want to transition to reusables, but just simply don't know how.
Have you seen your growth impacted by the current macroeconomic environment? If some companies might see this as something that they want to do, but it's not necessarily crucial to their operations, they need to cut expenses?
Actually, no. It has gone in the other direction. I mentioned a little bit at the very beginning about supply chain costs. At first, we had thought that this £1 per use price point was going to be something that only maybe certain companies would want to pay out of their sustainability budget. But what we're hearing from more and more operators is that that is becoming close to parity with what they would be paying for their sustainable, compostable packaging options because of, as I mentioned, the supply chain disruptions, as well as the fact that sometimes they simply just can't get the packaging that they normally order. So they are looking for other types of use cases and solutions.
And the cleaning process as such, is that also being done by a third party, or is this something you take care of yourself?
That's being done by a third party. So our ideal is to connect. We actually didn't really get into this, but what we think is our value proposition is that we are connecting lots of different service providers to provide reuse services. It's not magic to be able to wash the bowls. Lots of people do this. For example, if you've ever been to a wedding, there's someone there who owns the plates, who provides you the plates and washes the plates after. And we think long-term, we would be a platform that connects lots of these different providers to be able to enable many people to transition over to reuse. And that is where we've invested a lot of our resourcing, and not creating the packaging or trying to wash it ourselves or getting a warehouse and, buying a dishwasher.
A big part of your business is execution on the logistics and supply side, but a big part of it's also execution on acquiring customers. How do you guys plan on acquiring customers? And is there any kind of little finagling you can do in terms of carbon credits as well for companies that implement something like this that are no longer throwing out quite so much?
What we found is that in the beginning, some people more on the investor side were asking about carbon credits, but actually on the company side and on the customer side, what people have seen is, or what we have observed is that people understand intuitively why a reusable item is better than a single-use item. And so the carbon credit hasn't necessarily been something that has become prioritized again as an area that we are looking into immediately, because it's pretty cumbersome and requires for you to have a long-standing supply chain. But our plan to acquire customers has actually been super interesting. We don't invest in a lot into marketing, and we're finding that people are finding us at this stage. We're not really sure how. We don't invest into Google AdWords or anything like that, but we have seen a lot of canteen operators, real estate providers, so big real estate companies, and other people with net zero goals looking to make an impact in the space outside of what they're already doing in terms of measuring their carbon footprint, buying carbon credits. They're looking to do more beyond that, and there's not a lot of available solutions. And so the way that we are trying to find them now is to go through different partnership channels. Like we have a delivery partner that does delivery. We provide the reverse logistics of that. As I mentioned, we're going through some real estate partners that have a big portfolio of lots of different companies, as well as recycling and waste managers. Right now, what they're seeing is that a lot of their waste streams are being contaminated with food packaging, which can't really easily be recycled or composted unless it's specifically segregated. And so there's value in them helping us to find customers, as well as it helps to keep their waste stream a little bit cleaner.
Understood. Thanks for clarifying that. How quickly do you think you can scale with something so capital intensive?
It's a good question. We don't, as I mentioned, we don't plan to necessarily own the bowls for forever. What we're trying to do with this 750K is to make London essentially an MVP for reuse as a service and the logistics behind it. There are tech companies out there that are looking at just providing the tech, but I think at this stage, we don't know enough about how people want to use and operate reusables in order for you to just build the tech itself. So what we're doing currently is we're offering the service to people, seeing how they're going to interact with the bowls. Some things that we've already seen is that users don't want to have to scan packaging in and out. Neither do restaurants or their operators. They don't want to have to scan things, the bowl and the lid again and again. And that's how a lot of competitors in this area are looking at reusable packaging. And we don't think that in and of itself scales. And so that's why we parcelize everything in reusable totes, and we track our inventory that way via various partners.
Understood. Then that's everything I got. I want to make sure we have enough time for the other companies as well. Laura, Moritz, Daniel, do you guys want to add anything?
No, I mean, I think you're thinking about the market, exactly right. It's one of those few spaces where you really have to create demand. You have to be an absolute sales monster. You have to be at every event. You have to talk to the city of London. You have to just, put yourself out there and be like, we're the guys. This is our little, sustainable bowl. And this is how it works. And then people are like, oh, this is interesting. Like, tell me more about it. It's none of those products where people actively come to you so much. At least that's what we felt. So to just have people that essentially are extroverts on the spectrum, close to 100% that are out in the field every evening to just bring the message to the people is what we found is really the key here. So I think you guys seem to think about this exactly right.
I would just send free lunches to all the big businesses, send them a couple of them to the people in HR or the people that manage the supply chain and say, by the way, we can fix this for you. Hope this tastes nice. Relatively cheap. It shows the product and you can be obnoxious and everyone likes free food.
Definitely need the 750K to execute that strategy.
Yeah. Get local companies to donate it. It can be advertising for restaurants.